Welcome to the Hollywood in Toto podcast, the right take on entertainment. The HiT cast offers a weekly look at Hollywood from a conservative point of view. Sick of media bias infecting Hollywood headlines? Tired of stars insulting your views? HiT has your back. Now, here's your host, Christian Toto.
Welcome to the show. If this is your first time listening, well, then thanks for coming. The Hollywood in Toto podcast airs every Friday with engaging interviews, the latest headlines, and recommendations to make the most of your leisure time. As always, you can find the show notes at hollywoodintoto.com. This week, HiT contributor Dave Minkus talked to Burkely Duffield, the star of the new Freeform series Beyond. But before we get to their chat, I want to share a little bit about my past celebrity interviews. You know, one of the perks of being an entertainment reporter is interviewing some of the stars I've kind of gotten to know and love, at least their work, over the years. I remember years ago I got a little bit fanboyish when I met Albert Brooks for the first time. He was pretty cool about it, but I definitely gushed a little bit. Then I kind of got to business, of course, but hard to hold back sometimes when when you're such an admirer of their work. But other interviews I had were a little bit more interesting. I think the weirdest one I had, looking back, was my chat with Harrison Ford, though I don't think I'd call it a chat exactly. I was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Before the event, there's always this massive party on the grounds of the hotel where it's held. And I saw Ford from a distance. He was, of course, surrounded by a whole bunch of people. So carefully, I just kind of maneuvered my way toward him, pushing through the crowd, and finally got close enough where I could ask him three questions. Because this was the kind of place where a lot of reporters like me were peppering people with questions. So asked him three questions. I got three one-word answers. And I have to say, I don't remember what my questions were, nor my answers. But I did come away thinking, hey, why is Harrison Ford wearing a gold-stud earring? And also, I've heard he's a really bad interview subject, and it kind of proved that was the case for me. Now, of course, it wasn't a perfect setting, but I've had some sort of awkward interviews in the past where the celebrities were able to get a rally, but just not his style. Great actor, an icon for sure, but not exactly the best interview subject around. I also had a chance to talk to John Travolta for Ladder 49, one of his films from a few years back, and we had a perfectly pleasant exchange, although one of the things that was a little weird about it was he asked for the lighting in the room to be dimmed just a little bit. Now, I don't know why, maybe it's just his thing, but it kind of just stuck me as one of the things I remember most about the interview. I also chatted with Christian Slater. I think that was for the film Bobby a few years ago, and that one wasn't so great either. I have to say, he really wasn't willing to open up about some of his past demons that he's conquered. You know, this was sort of enough time had passed where the headlines had faded, and I kind of just asked him very gingerly if he had learned from them or any sort of, kind of process that he could kind of take away from his harder time as a celebrity. He kind of dodged those questions, but he did seem to be flirting actively with the photographer from the newspaper I was working for, who was there to kind of snap pictures of him as he was chatting with me, so that wasn't exactly my favorite interview. I also got the chance to meet Tom Hanks, the mighty Tom Hanks. And I have to say, we had a really good conversation, but he got a little bit mad at me at one point, and I was kind of surprised. We were talking about Castaway, his film, which was obviously he was terrific in. And I asked him a little bit about the roles he chooses and why he doesn't maybe tackle more villainous roles. He really, up to that point, had been the good guy in almost everything he'd done. He got a little grumpy with me. He said, I get that question all the time, and he kind of went on. I don't even know what he said, but I just remember he got grumpy. He did kind of rebound, and we had a nice conversation afterwards, but I have to say, looking back today, I'm kind of glad he sticks to those heroic roles. I mean, he's great as Sully. He's been so good in other performances in recent years, and maybe that's just his routine, and that's what he's good at. And maybe, I think it was a fair question, but I also, at the same time, I'm kind of glad he's picking the roles he does. I think it's a great choice for him, and it really suits his talents well. And one person I almost interviewed, at least briefly, was Morgan Freeman. It was at a Kennedy Center Honors event, and it was, just a huge crush of celebrities in this big kind of fancy cocktail party. And I got right next to him, and I have to say, I got a little nervous. I wasn't on assignment to speak to him directly, so it was more of a casual thing, kind of get all the celebrity quotes you can. But I don't know, just seeing him in person, I was a little intimidated, which I don't typically get with the big stars. And then, of course, my window closed. He shuffled out of the room, and I missed my chance to talk to him. So hopefully one time down the future I can chat with him in a more official setting. But that was the one time I don't know, I got to get a little starstruck, and I kind of veered away from him just for a second. And that was enough to miss the interview. But overall, I must say, I've never been treated badly by a star. I never had any sort of star attitudes or anyone kind of yell at me or sort of treat me in anything other than a professional fashion. Even Tom Hanks was pretty cool and calm, even though he was getting a little bit hot under the collar. I do remember Tim Robbins taping me when I was taping him for an interview I was conducting for the Washington Times. And I have to say, maybe as a big-time sort of Hollywood liberal, he saw the Washington Times and thought, well, what if they take me off, out of context, or they get my quotes wrong? So I had no problem with that. He taped me, I taped him. We got along famously. But looking ahead, I have to say, I really want to, there's a few stars that I really love to talk to. Love to sit down and talk with Michael Keaton. I just think he's an interesting guy, and I love the choices he's made, and the fact that he's been pretty honest about some of his career, I guess you could say maneuvers over time. He's been kind of down and out, not it's not a down and out, but sort of away from the public eye, and now it seems like every other year he's up for Oscar consideration, so I'm glad he's back. Would love to talk to him. Obviously would love to have a few moments with Dustin Hoffman. Just seems like a character and a legend, and I think we'd have a great conversation. Also Denzel Washington. I saw him at a movie preview years ago. I think it was Remember the Titans, but it was kind of working the red carpet. I may have shared a word or two with him at best, but nothing consequential. I just love to pick his brain. I think he's just a brilliant actor, and I love the way he kind of doesn't get political with his sort of personal, comments. And in today's day and age, everyone is telling me exactly what they think about politics and abortion and all sorts of hot button issues. He's just a movie star, and he's a great one. So he's someone I really like kind of have a chance to talk to down the road. And then just to kind of veer away from movies briefly, love to chat with Elvis Costello. I feel like he's been interviewed a zillion times. It'd be hard to kind of think of what questions I'd ask him that he hasn't been asked a million times before, but if I had the chance, I certainly would. I would do a lot of homework. He's a genius, and just to get the chance to pick his brain would be wonderful. But we'll see. One day, maybe I'll get the chance. And I've had the chance to talk to a lot of people I never thought I would, including Will Smith, Kevin Spacey. So you never know. You never know if the right project comes along and the right opportunity. It could happen. But I will share that with you here on the Hollywood in Total podcast for sure. Now for the hit tip of the week. It's Goliath, a new series from Amazon Studios. This isn't another example of our golden age of TV. It's not as good as Fargo or The Americans or some of the other really top echelon shows today, but it's actually pretty enjoyable all the same. It's a little bit soapy for me. It's about a lawyer who's kind of fallen on hard times, and he's kind of latched onto a new case, hoping to get a little bit of redemption against both his ex-employer and also kind of getting control of his life again. He drinks too much, he smokes too much, the usual sort of self-destruction on parade. But of course, it's Billy Bob Thornton. He's great in roles like this. He hits it out of the park every episode. He's wonderful, and he's got a really good supporting cast too. So for all those reasons, check out Goliath. It's the first season. I don't know if the second season is on the way. I don't think there's been an official announcement yet, but it's a good show on Amazon Prime, available now. Give it a whirl. Now let's get to this week's interview. Burkely Duffield stars as Holden, a young man who wakes up from a 12-year coma to learn he's got some pretty amazing abilities. It's the new series called Beyond. You can find it on the Freeform network. It just launched, and if you don't want to watch week after week, you can binge watch it via the website from Freeform. So check it out. For now, we've got HiT contributor Dave Minkus. He had a chance to chat with the Canadian actor. He was visiting Denver recently and had a kind of the usual press tour, visiting city to city to kind of drum up interest for a particular product, and Dave got a chance to talk to him. So here's Dave's chat with rising star Burkely Duffield.
Thanks, Christian. In early December, I had the great privilege of hosting a fan screening for the second season premiere of the Freeform show Shadowhunters. What really caught my eye, though, was the new show they were giving the crowd a sneak peek of before that, called Beyond. The trailer looked really promising, and I was fortunate enough to watch the 2-part pilot before the event. I was really impressed with its quality and was able to arrange to talk with the show's star, Burkely Duffield, for a few minutes before the event. You can catch Beyond Monday nights on Freeform, or you can binge the entire season right now on the Freeform website and apps, or if you're a Hulu subscriber. Without further ado, here's my chat with Mr. Duffield.
You were asleep for a long time.
To call Holden's awakening a phenomenon would be an understatement.
Don't try to play catch-up all at once. You got plenty of time.
You should come with me.
What all this town's talking about?
Hi.
Hey,
I'm...
Holden. I know. They're coming for you.
First of all, how did you get involved with Beyond? This is such a unique project.
Yeah, of course. I think even just right off the bat, getting the pilot, I mean, it's such a cool piece of work. Adam, the creator of the show, is such a talented writer, and when you read something that really just resonates and has such a cool storyline with these action sort of and sci-fi elements, which I love to as a viewer watching, and to have this journey for this character, even just laid out the beginnings of it in the pilot, really attracted me to the piece. And I thought, this is something really, really cool, and I mean, just honored to be sitting here a part of it now.
That's awesome. And it's not like you're not familiar to genre work, between working on Warcraft and House of Anubis and Masters of Science Fiction even. I love that miniseries. How has this been different from working on those kinds of projects?
Absolutely. This is definitely something, it's more immersive, I think, and it's something new. I think we're really trying to create sort of a cool new vibe. So it was something that, with the worlds that were being created that we do on green screen, as well as the sort of the abilities that Holden finds himself having was A, very cool because it was new, and B, to be able to embody the character who's sort of learning, sort of almost like an origin of where his abilities come from. It was cool to sort of have that learning curve throughout the season.
That's awesome. Something that's very striking about it, especially in the pre-portion, which obviously you're not in yet, is that it has a very 80s adventure movie kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
And it still carries through even after you come out of the coma. Was that a choice that was specifically made stylistically, especially, the freedom that grants you by shooting in a quote-unquote small town?
I think, yeah, and I think that sort of, it was a cool sort of vibe to show exactly just how different things were beforehand, like in the pilot, before he goes into his coma. You even, exactly as you say, you sense that it's just different. The world is a different place. It moves at a different pace. It's here and it's there. And then when he wakes up, the hustle and bustle of the 21st century, 12 years later, I think it is really just a shock for him. And I think that was just another stylistic choice by Adam, as well as our directors and team, to sort of make that as much of a difference for Holden as we could make it.
Very cool. It's interesting because even though it has that 80s vibe, it's still very much set in 2005.
Yeah.
Which was when I had my 10-year high school reunion. Good God, I'm old. Okay. But not only did you have to juggle, kind of jump in between a 12-year gap, but every project obviously has its own acting challenges and kind of presents a new obstacle and new things for you to try out.
Exactly.
One thing that was really striking is that you juggle being a 25-year-old body with a 13-year-old mind, and still, and having that uncertainty and that discovery that comes with being a teenager, just starting to, enter manhood. How did you keep that balance going?
It was fun. I mean, it was teamwork between, our directors and the writers and myself to really keep him innocent as much as we could. When you'd walk into a room, it was what's new to him, what doesn't he know? So it was sort of fun to put him in those situations, and you very often see him fail and stumble through these situations and not go very smoothly as he's hoped. But it was a cool part of the show, and it made for some very comedic points as well throughout the show.
I think it also highlights the fact that no matter how old we get as men, there's still the 13-year-old boy hiding inside us.
There definitely is, and there's always something that you go, oh my gosh, like, how did I do that? Why did I do that? So exactly.
That was yesterday for me. Absolutely. So one thing that's very interesting is TV shows over the years have always thrived on having a good villain. But never in my life did I think that I would find a creepy and sinister Dustin Hoffman from the 80s to be so effective and off-putting. Like, how was that dynamic on set working with him?
Peter, who plays Yellow Jacket, he really does bring such a menacing energy. I mean, he is such a comedic, fun guy. He's a good friend. But on set, when you are acting alongside him in this character, I mean, just that glaze that he gets in his eyes and his tone, he really, and exactly, physically may not look like the stereotypical bad guy, but he is a cold, threatening force, and as you see more, you really see how terrifying this man really is.
It's interesting when you see him go home to his family and he just kind of takes the hat off of bad guy, and here I am as family man. And
he's a real person. And I remember talking to Adam about this too, and he's our villain, but he's a guy. He's a guy with he is a real person going through and making these choices, and you see why he makes them and what he's doing. So it's definitely interesting as well to see this terrifying bad guy and then see actually though that he is just a guy making choices day to day, and that's what he's deciding to do with his life.
It's just such a fun show. I don't want to get too much into it because obviously the pilot premieres January 2nd. Don't want to get too far into it. One thing that's very interesting is that Freeform is taking, I will say, the bold move of releasing the entire season on January 2nd on streaming. What do you think about like what kind of confidence that shows from the network?
I mean, it's awesome. It's so cool to see the network being able to wanting to show our show in bulk in a streamable setting. And for me, I mean, I love binge watching. So personally for me, I love not having to wait sometimes till the next week. And sometimes it's fun to be able to